Hi, my name's Ant Lyons from Your Property Network. Thanks for joining us on this webinar. I'm joined by one of my colleagues, one of my business partners on this training today, who's going to be talking about her story in property and how it applies to you if you're just getting started out in property. So we're looking at 3 ways that you can get into property even if you're starting with limited funds. So thank you for joining me, Michelle Cairns. As I say, very much part of the team and one of my business partners in the magazine. And we've been working together for 6 years, maybe.
Something like that. Yeah, there's been a lot of different roles over the years, and it's great to come full circle and just be, having gone through the journey myself of replacing the day job and getting into property and now working with YPN and coming and just sharing my story with people who are starting out at the beginning of their journey. I think it's important just to highlight what you've said there, that this, web class, this webinar today, we're really helping people just get some ideas on how to get started. It's one of the most common questions we get. Traditionally, most people think that when they come into property, they need a big pot of money. And certainly it's easier if you do have money, but it doesn't need to stop you if you don't have money. So we're going to be looking at a few creative ways of how you can get involved with property, how you can earn an income through property with either limited funds or none of your own money. So should we get started?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a little bit about YPN, if that's okay, because
Yes,
I'm
please.
really conscious that people might not know anything about us. So,
True.
Your Property Network is best known for our magazine, which is written by property investors for property investors and for people who are wanting to get into property. And we've been doing that since 2008. I'm one of the co-founders. I'm also a full-time landlord or part-time landlord, however you want to deem it, and property investor and developer myself. All of our team, including Michelle, are property professionals, investors, and developers, as well as the magazine, which goes out to around 10,000 property people every month. We have an amazing podcast, which Michelle hosts, and she'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. We have a fairly active Facebook group, different online trainings as well. We've got a couple of different training programs for people who want to take their learning a little bit further in particular niches. Referred to as our total programs. And we are all about getting creative in property. Property is rarely for us about just making some money elsewhere and parking it in a property. We are about creative property investment, getting into this, even if you have limited funds, or how to boost your knowledge and work with other people and get creative. So that's us. We've been around a long time now. I've got grayer over the years, and I first met Michelle, as I say, about 6 or 7 years ago, and I thought she had an amazing story. She's going to tell you about it in a minute, but she went from a proper career, a proper job, into full-time property investor, professional property investor and developer, despite the challenge of having no money to do it, really. I thought she had an amazing story. We started, I think, by us doing an interview with you, and 7 years later, you're part of the team and part of the business and helping us push it forward. So that's a little bit about us in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks, Ant. It's really kind of you. And it's great to also just, highlight that the magazine and the community, the network, and, the name of the company, Your Property Network, has just played such an important part of certainly my journey, and for many people in the property industry's journey, and not just connecting them with people who are like-minded, connecting them with people who are professionals in whatever they do, whether that's solicitors, mortgage lenders, whoever it is, but actually the inspiration from the case studies has been so important and pivotal, certainly, to my journey, because it really has opened up my eyes to different ways of generating an income, as I say, that you just don't hear about day-to-day life. So that's what we're about today, is just opening your mind to a few different ideas. This is certainly just the tip of the iceberg. There are plenty more to how you can make money through property through the non-traditional, and we call them creative ways. So should we dive in?
Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's have a look then. So here are 3 ways that you can create an income through property, even if you're just starting out. So as Ant said there, a bit about myself. I'm based in Chester. I was a French and Spanish teacher back in the day for many years, and then went into property development in 2015. Award-winning property investor. I was on the Mastermind 26, for those of you who know about that. And I have now a mixed portfolio. So it's a mixture of HMOs, developments and single lets. So I like the diversified approach, which is really suits me and my personality. I am also the coach for the PIN Creative Finance Home Study, and as Ant mentioned before, podcast host and the training manager for YPN as well. So here are a few of the guests. So I have the absolute pleasure and privilege to interview. These are just a selection of a few people that if you're already in the property education world, you might recognize some of these names, but many more. So whether that's a podcast guest or a guest for one of our training programs, I have the pleasure of doing weekly interviews with them. So rest assured, you're in great hands. There's lots of insights to come. So what we're going to be covering today is 3 exciting property case studies. So 3 ways of making an income from property, even if you're just starting out. The first one is called rent to rent. Then we've got a development and a purchase lease option. So if you're not familiar with these terms, don't worry, we'll be explaining all about them. So each deal in these case study earns between £500 and £1,500 a month. So I want you to be thinking of what your target is. So for many of you, you might be looking to either replace your day job or replace some money to, get some money in to have the option to replace your day job. Some of you are quite happy where you are for now in the day job, but you might want the option to leave if you ever needed to.
And we are in difficult times for many people as well, aren't we, Michelle? Lots of people looking at different ways to make money, make ends meet, or afford the nicer things in life and a few luxuries. So I don't think it could ever be more pertinent, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's just to, the cost of living crisis or maintaining a certain lifestyle, or having some flexibility on the day job, it might not be giving it up completely, but it might just be going part-time, and that might make life a lot more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's good to have options. So this first deal is called a rent to rent. And the idea of a rent to rent is that you find a landlord, you take the property and you rent it from them, and then you rent it out again to other tenants. So you don't live in it, you're like the middle person in between. So you're not a property agent, it's in the traditional sense, because actually this is on a lease rather than you're not a managing agent. So for example, you take in all of the rent, but also you pay all of the bills. So you or your company would pay for the gas and electric, the gardener, the cleaner, etc. Whereas normally a letting agency wouldn't do that. So you're there to guarantee the rent. So that's another distinction, over a certain period of time. Typically, the rent-to-rent deals, you'd be looking at 3 to 5 years. Now, this is an absolutely terrible picture that I'm slightly cringing and embarrassed about, but it is the real photo that I put on. It's a few years old now, and I'd like to say that if any bedrooms I'd be showcasing at the moment in the current day would be designed with a much better interior design. However, I want to make the point that it's not about perfection, it's about progress. So you can spend a lot of time and money getting things perfect, but actually you just want to make progress. You want to get things up and running, and then you can get perfect later on. So this was certainly good enough at the time. The room rented out, and it did the job. So it's not perfect, but it was good enough. So this is a 3-bed, as you can see there. So up there was a room in the attic, a bedroom at the front, a bedroom at the back. And then what I did was, this was a lounge here that was a separate reception room that I converted into a bedroom. So there were 4 people then living in this house. Okay, so the cash flow from this was £545 per month. Now, at the time, I was teaching full-time and my salary was around £1,500 a month. So you can see that actually it didn't take long for me to replace my income through these types of deals. So how many deals would it take you to replace your income or get to your first goal? So let's have a look at some of the numbers. So a bit of story about this as well. So this, just by chance, it popped up on Facebook from a sourcer. Now, a sourcer is somebody who goes out and finds these deals. They don't want them themselves, or they're looking in different areas from where they live, and they're happy to just pass on deals. So I found this on Facebook. It was a joint venture originally. So that means that I went into the deal jointly with somebody else who was also in my network. And we decided to put in the costs up front to get it going, and then we split the profit. So this was a 5-year lease. There was no deposit involved. The sourcing fee that we paid was £2,500 up front to get the deal. Paint, carpets, furniture, £5,600. We agreed the rent to the landlord as £800 per month for 5 years. So that never changed. The income, 1,825, bills, 480, and the profit, 545. So at the beginning, this was the joint venture partner. We decided that he had a full-time job and he didn't actually want to be involved with it in the long term. So I ended up buying him out. But just to give you an idea, up front, we split this cost between us. Now, because I didn't have, cash in the bank as such, I didn't really have much savings or anything. So anything that I could put on a 0% credit card or financing it as a lease, I did that. So what happened was I bought the furniture and the carpets, and then with the money that I got in every month, that paid it off. So so that's just another way that you can do it. We're not advising you go putting out getting credit cards for something you can't afford, but you can see here that the profits can pay off what you borrow.
Well, and lots of creative ways to do these types of deals. I did something similar when I bought an HMO a few years ago, and I said, well, okay, we're doing this together, but you take the cash flow. Someone else was putting in the deposit, so I said, you take the cash flow until that's paid off completely, and then we'll split it going forwards. And so there's loads of ways to structure these deals creatively, as long as we think of them as a win-win. So as long as it works for us and our partner, and obviously in this case the owner of the property. I was going to ask Michelle, so have you seen your rents increase over time? Because we've definitely seen the demand for room rentals go up significantly as people are feeling the pinch and looking for more affordable accommodation.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's obviously a lot of talk about the cost of utilities going up and, just generally like cost of living going up. But with that, the rents have gone up as well. Now, the beauty about this, a deal like this is that you lock in the rent with the landlord over a certain time. Now, there was no mortgage on this. So, the landlord didn't have to worry about the mortgage rates going up or whatever. So he got the £800 on the long term, and that was fixed for both of us, so that was great because we didn't have to worry about any interest rates. So yeah, he was happy. That meant that he got his £800 guaranteed every month. There was no issues in terms of managing the tenants or anything. The boiler did need a fixing a while ago. He had to fix that because it's his property at the end of the day. It's not our property, so we're not going to go to that extent of doing repairs such as boilers or roof or anything like that. But
more general day-to-day sort of maintenance you might take care of from your side of things, but something that's a bit more long-term and heavy reinvestment would almost certainly sit with him as the owner.
That's it, yeah. And he was happy because the story around this, a lot of people would think, well, why didn't he just do this himself? He travelled a lot with work, and he was often away for a few months at a time, and often in locations where the signal wasn't great. And he just didn't want the hassle of having to manage tenants, and he just saw it as he'd had a few bad tenants in the past. He just didn't want to get involved. So he wanted that long-term solution, hands off, that he could just forget about the property but still make a good income from it.
Okay, and amazing. So this is a property that you didn't have to find and you didn't have to finance.
Absolutely. So there was I didn't have to find the deposit money. I didn't have to find, the solicitor's money for the legals or anything like that, stamp duty. So you're basically controlling a property for a period of time and using it as if you own it, certainly benefiting from the profit as if it's yours, but you don't own it. So there's pros and cons to this, and it's certainly a great strategy for people getting started with limited funds, because they can get going pretty quickly. And yeah, of course, there's other things that you need to know. You need to know about tenant management and being compliant and all those things, but they can be learned. It's not rocket science. You can just either outsource that, or you can learn that as you go.
Okay, fantastic, great deal.
Okay, so the next one is a development of 4 flats. Now this one, I have to say before we start, was so far out of my comfort zone, in terms of I didn't know anything about developments at the time. This was the first one that I'd done, and however, I didn't need to know, because I worked with somebody else who did know. So I want you to be thinking of, you don't necessarily have to have the skill set, but if you have something else to bring to the table, so for example, you might have the time, you might have the time to find a deal or manage a project and keep on top of things, or you might bring a certain network, like people to the table, or skill set, or whatever it is, then you can find other people and work together to make the progress in your journey. So you can fast track what you're doing, is what I'm trying to say. So it was 4 existing flats. As you can see here, the ground floor, there was 1 flat, and then there was 1 at the back. So it's a 2-bed, a 1-bed, and then on the first floor is a 2-bed, and then upstairs is a 1-bed on the top floor. So I've actually found this on Rightmove, and a lot of people say, oh, there's no deals on Rightmove. Well, I disagree. I found a few on Rightmove, and it's all about seeing an opportunity and understanding what can be done, and looking at a property in a creative way, and having knowledge, which we're going to talk about later, that actually changes the deal, so makes it profitable, but other people can't spot the opportunity. It's in North Wales, and it was done as an online auction. Is a freehold, and it had a prohibition order on it, which just meant that the council had closed it because the condition was so bad inside. Now, it wasn't so bad that it was structural, or it was falling down or anything like that. It was just, it was a bit of a squalor, really. So it wasn't very nice inside. So I think a lot of people might have been put off by that prohibition order, but all the condition was that you had to make it rentable, and then the prohibition order would be removed. So look out for these types of things that other people might be put off by, but actually can work in your favour.
I was going to say, I did a similar deal to this a few years ago as well, a small block of 4 flats, and again purchased on Rightmove. And I think one of the things that it's interesting is that sometimes these flats, they might be listed as a sort of an 8-bedroom flat. It's not. It's definitely not. It's 4 separate flats, but whoever's listed it on Rightmove hasn't quite known how to list it. So as you can imagine, there's very few people out there looking for an 8-bedroom flat. So sometimes just getting a little bit creative in how you search on these properties can really yield these results, because they're sort of hidden from everybody else who doesn't quite have the knack of doing a bit of extra digging. If you found that yourself?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it just searching on Rightmove and checking what the agents have put. Sometimes, like, this is more of a commercial project. It's a property. It's not one residential home. So what you will find is that the agents who are more used to those residential family homes, they don't really know how to market something that is a bit different and more commercial. So often, sometimes they just make mistakes as well. And you know, they miss opportunities, because remember, agents aren't investors. You know, typically they're going to be working with homeowners. They don't know how to look at a deal or analyze it. So yeah, look out for keywords in when you're looking at Rightmove. So it might be opportunity for investors, cash buyer, things like that. Okay, so as I said before, I did work with a joint venture partner on this one. He brought the funds, and he understood about development, and he basically said, if I've got the time, so I brought the deal, and he said, if I've got the time to help manage it and do all the paperwork and, you know, make the phone calls to the architect, to the solicitors, do all of the chasing, then we could go on the deal 50-50. So with this one, we were buying to hold it for the long term. That was the plan. So, as you can see here, this was the kind of state it was in. It was half done. So some people were trying to live there unsuccessfully. Obviously, there was the fridge had, God knows what was in the fridge, but it was alive. That'll give you a clue. So the owner had attempted to do half of the work, and they'd never got around to finishing it, basically. So here are some of the after pictures, and as you can see, you know, it's not anything super fancy, but the rents in the area are, you know, quite low rents, and typically just you know, you're not going to get super high rents. There was no point in spending a lot on the refurbishment.
Well, I'm a genuine believer that the requirement for affordable accommodation that's safe and warm and, you know, generally quite a nice place to live. We wouldn't necessarily aspire to live in it, but you know, we'd be very happy to if we had to. I think those properties are always going to be in demand, aren't they? Especially now in the times we're looking at the moment.
Yeah, they really are. As you say, they're just in a lot of demand, and people are willing to pay, you know, and stay. You know, they pay a good rate, and they stay long term in places like that. So sometimes it's not about just having the highest rents and having a lot of turnover. It's about having something that's a bit more middle range, that people stay longer. So let's have a look at some of the key figures on this one. So the purchase price was 60,000. Now I did call the agent and I said, is there a zero missing here somewhere? So for those of you who are watching this and you're based down south, there aren't many left of these. If I saw another one, I'd snap it up straight away. But it was worth 60,000 for the whole block, the whole freehold. The building costs came in at around 110,000, legals, finance, etc., around 25, and the GDV, which means the end value. So once we had completely decorated it all, what was it worth at the very, very end was £250,000. Now, I'm going to share with you a few little nuggets here. So 50,000 of the 60 was a private investor. Then we had a joint venture partner as well. So the joint venture partner put 25 in. Now, Empty Homes loan was available in the area. Now, it was, this is something that not many people know about, and it really made the difference in this deal. Now, the Empty Homes loan was available for any unit. It was £25,000 loan it was per unit. So as we've got 4 units here, we were able to access £100,000 loan over 5 years at 0% interest.
Wow. How did you find out about that?
At a networking meeting. Wow. So I just picked up this, you know, sometimes you just pick up these kind of little throwaway things and you think, you know, you might spend an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours at a networking meeting, just one tiny thing, but like I just thought, okay, I'm sure I've heard somewhere that we can contact the council and say, because it's been empty. Now, the requirement was that it was empty for 6 months. So it's not even like these properties need to be empty for years. In this particular area, the council, you know, are, you know, very supportive and very proactive in getting empty properties back onto the market so they can be used for for homes. So there's a big initiative and a big drive in this particular council. Every council's different. You can go, you know, half an hour down the road to a different council and you get £5,000 grant if you're lucky, and you have to have tenants on, you know, on benefits there to be able to access that grant. So it just so happened in this location that we did get that.
I can guarantee that I can absolutely guarantee that everybody watching this is going to be Googling that right now. So I know exactly. I'm going to be, yeah.
Definitely. So Google empty homes loan. There will be an officer within the council that you can contact, but they usually have it on the council website of loans and grants available. So see what's available in your area. They only have a certain amount of money, you know, so just see what's available. I think that, to be honest, I think that's gone up to £35,000 now since we've done this. It's incredible. And then the stamp duty exemption. So we're in the process of this reclaiming that back. So if a property is uninhabitable, when you purchase it, then you can apply. Now I have to say it's easier in England than it is in Wales, but you have to obviously have proof that nobody can, you know, it's uninhabitable. So if it's got kitchens and things, then you're not going to be able to do this. But if you can't get a mortgage on it, then you know, it's beyond the state of repair, then you can apply for this. So again, the stamp duty was only 1,800 anyway because the purchase price was so low. But hey, every penny counts, right? Absolutely,
yeah.
So so breakdown of the income. I've actually just updated this. Sadly, we did exit this on the we had this on a variable interest rate, so the mortgage has shot up. Unfortunately, the rents have increased as well, so it still makes a good profit, but yeah, a couple of years ago it made a lot more profit. What can you do? It's really important to make sure that you're realistic when you're stacking the deal, which means when you're doing the numbers originally, you know, making sure that you're realistic on the mortgage rates, which is what we did at the beginning. So we had a bonus few years. So the income on all of the flats individually comes to 2,500. The mortgage, it is 1,200. We pay an agent 8%, insurance 65, which gives us a cash flow of £1,000. Now again, we split that 50-50, so that's, you know, that's 50-50 ours to take if we want to. So 500.
Now going forward, having built the experience on this deal, you probably wouldn't have the requirement for the JV partner in terms of their experience again, would you? You would know how to do this, and you've got the connections. So I know you're a prolific networker, so you'd have the connections to raise the money yourself and so forth. So a lot of learning on this deal, I'm sure. And you said at the very start of this presentation, you know, it's not rocket science, but not being complicated is not necessarily the same thing as being easy, is it? And I'm sure there was a lot of work went into this in getting the deal done.
There's a lot of work, a lot of learning, and as you're right, you said there, so I wouldn't need to work with a joint venture partner in terms of, you know, them bringing the experience anymore, because I've done a couple of these now. So so, you know, in that case the profit would be the full £1,000. Now the difference between having a joint venture partner is you do split everything 50-50, so the property is joint ownership, so you split the equity and you split the profits. Another way of structuring a deal like this is to work with a private investor where you just borrow the money for a certain period of time and you don't share the ownership of the property. So you know, once you, at the end of it, you can pay them back, and then you've got the profits and you keep the property ongoing. So again, lots of different ways of doing these, but just to kind of whet your appetite on what is possible. Okay, so this is, I think it's our last case study, is the 10-bed purchase lease option. Before I looked at this, I never thought in a million years that I would ever get a 10-bed house share. So I thought, well, I understood that students would live in a 10-bed because they'd all know each other and you might get 2 groups of 5. But I thought, you know, professionals living in a 10-bed, you know, in this area, I didn't think all of the rooms would be, you know, that people would want to live in in share between 9 other people. So, but I was wrong. So it just goes to show you that sometimes you have these beliefs about what's possible. But, you know, sometimes you just got to give some things a go. So with this one, I did find it through a sourcer. Someone in my network came to me and said, I've got, you know, he had plenty of deals on. He was busy with his own properties, and he said, I've got too many. Would you be interested in this? And he actually presented it to me as that rent to rent idea at the beginning. And I said, you know what, 10 bed, a rent to rent, you know, I'm not sure, but let me go and have a chat with the owner and let's see what happens. So we actually negotiated a 5-year deal, and I said to them a key question. I said, well, would you be interested in selling this property in the next couple of years? And they said that they would. So this is a bit like a rent to rent. It's a similar idea, but you've got the option to buy. So that's the main difference. So we took this on for 5 years with the option to buy it within that 5-year period. We're actually up to year 4 now on this one. So I had to work with a private investor for this one because, again, I didn't have the cash to do the work involved. I'll talk to you about the numbers next. But the important one with this one is there's different ways that you can add value with different properties. So always thinking about how can I add value if you can, because that's, you know, the best way to make the long-term wealth in property on top of the cash flow. So with this one, we agreed that the purchase price was £350,000. So we got an independent surveyor to come around, and at the time it was empty, it was tired, and for that reason they valued it at 350,000. So we agreed 1,550 as a monthly lease fee to the owner, and then the refurb we worked out as around 35,000. But so it was empty, it was a student property, it was really tired, so it didn't actually, there's nothing structural that needed doing to it. Actually, we took down one stud wall in the kitchen, that was it, but otherwise it was just carpets, paint and furniture that we updated it all with. So as I didn't have the 35, I asked the owners if they would be interested in giving me some money towards the refurbishment. They said yes. So if
you don't ask, you don't get. Yeah.
So they were, you know, I said I'll need some money to get going. So I needed a bit of extra money, so I did borrow that. So the which I'll come to next, the average room rent comes in around 543. That's I just updated these this week, so these are current. The total income when full, so 5,431. Again, the monthly lease fee to the owner, and then total expenses, including the voids and the maintenance, including council tax, utilities, insurance, cleaning, internet, gardener, Netflix. So obviously very high, but the profits there is 1,878. This doesn't include an agent, and the reason is we manage it ourselves. Actually, with this one, we have one of the rooms we have as a housekeeper. So out of the 10 bedrooms, one of the tenants is actually the housekeeper, so she manages it. She gets a discounted rent, and she gets to live there and manage the house. So it works all round, and it's certainly much more hands-off than it would be otherwise if we didn't have her. So I think I've forgotten just to put there, so the refurb 35, I did borrow some money from an investor to top it up, and that was a private investor actually I found through LinkedIn, and you know, borrowed that, did the refurb, and then that's paid all of that back. So here are some photos. So if you look at this top left one here and just imagine every room like this, so all magnolia, all these like cheap tatty sticky carpets, throws, the curtains were all like just flowery and plastic flowers there. So we took out that wall there, that stud wall, and that was the old kitchen.
and then we just, completely opened it all up. So it's got a double kitchen, this one, so oven, sink, etc., and the same around the back. Lots more storage, lots more kitchen, space like for fridge, freezers, etc. And then we just did each room, made it all looking really nice. So
can you tell us a little bit about your tenants, because it was a student property, you said, and obviously there's a lot of these around that are quite tired, and perhaps over the years the sort of student areas have shrunk a little bit as well, as we've had these purpose-built blocks built, and so over the years they've got a little bit tired, they haven't really had the investment, the rents have come down, the student properties, as people have wanted to live a bit more centrally, and we've seen that in probably every student city, town and city in the UK. So who lives there now? Who are your tenants now?
So a mixture. Some of them work at the local bank. I'd say there's probably the most kind of professional in terms of career on that kind of spectrum there. So people work at the bank. It is a city centre location, so a lot of people do walk into the city centre, and a lot of them work in the restaurants and bars in the city centre. A couple of them commute to either Liverpool or Wrexham, just on the outside. So and they want to kind of be near friends or family, so that's why they're in Chester. It's a beautiful place to live, and there's no parking available, so they have to find parking locally, so that didn't really put anybody off. So they're a mix of ages. We tend on the advert to advertise people who are 25 and above, just because out of experience they are the more kind of reliable type of tenants, but it's more about the actual person than the criteria. So if we meet somebody,
we're just trying to minimize the potential for, I guess, disharmony amongst your tenants.
That's it. And we make it really clear that if they are interested in any kind of student vibes, party vibes, anything like that, like it's just a straight no, please go and look for another house, because this isn't it. So we're very clear and very strict up front about having guests over, or having, there's no parties, no gatherings, everyone's professional, they're all working. We do look for people who are working outside of home, so they're not in the house. A few reasons for that, because obviously there's so many in the house that if 10 people were working from home, well, the bills would be skyrocketed for sure during the day. It just means lots of people around during the day, and cleaning, etc. So we try and choose people who've got work, whether they're nurses or doctors, or they're in the banks and they're leaving every day to go to work. But a lot of people are on shifts as well, which works well, so it's not like queues for the toilet or anything. We don't seem to have any issues like that. So yeah, they're a nice bunch. We've had a few people who've left, they've gone to live with a partner or something, it hasn't worked out, and they've come back to us, which has been really nice. So yeah, it's but going back to what I was saying about the 10 beds, two of the bedrooms are on the very small side, so they're like the smallest rooms in the house, and I just didn't think that they'd rent, so I didn't count them in the numbers when I was working out the deal and whether this would work, and actually they were the first two to go. So they're the two bonus rooms. If they get rented, it's great, and if they don't, it doesn't matter. So
okay, fab. So you're going to talk through some of your key learnings from this deal, and what you've taken on into sort of subsequent deals, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So just over the years, some of the just key ideas. The first one, investing in your education. As a teacher, I'm always going to be a lifelong learner, for sure. But this is, understanding what you can do in property was something that I never knew anything about before getting into it. It's not something that was really on my radar, or that I knew about. So as I said at the beginning, it really opened up my eyes to all of these just creative, interesting ways of making money that who knew. So I would say invest in your education, partly on understanding what's possible, but also making sure that you're compliant, and that means you're doing everything in the right way, because when you're working with tenants and the councils and solicitors and things, you need to know what you're doing. But all of these things can be learned, and you can fast track what you do by, you know, working with other people who've been there before you, or pretty much everything's available on the internet, you know, Google, ChatGPT, whatever. You can find it all there. Sometimes it's easier to work with one person or one company, and you know, they actually structure it in a way that's easy to learn.
I think you're absolutely right. Everything is out there. All the information is out there. But probably you, if you're watching this at home or wherever, don't really know the questions to ask. So, you know, 10 minutes ago, I knew nothing about empty homes loans. I'm pretty sure most of the people on this would feel the same. And that's just one piece of information amongst, you know, many tens of thousands that you pick up when you've been in this industry over, you know, a year or 2 years or whatever. So a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing, can't it? You know, you might know someone who is invested in property, and therefore you might think, oh, that was the only way to do it. Hopefully, you know, in the last sort of 20 minutes or so, we've shown you 3 different ways. And so if you are sat there thinking, well, I've always thought that property wasn't for me because I don't have the money to do it. You need a massive stack of cash or a silver spoon. You're born with a silver spoon to get into property. That's just not the case. And you know, you are definite proof of that, Michelle, as I myself, and we're not telling my story today, and the many thousands of people that we've both interviewed in YPN over the last, well, I've been doing this 15 years now.
Yeah, it's just so important to have these. I like to think of them as tools in the toolbox. The more tools that you've got, excuse the property pun there, the more tools that you've got in your toolbox, the more problems that you can solve, and the more creative you can be in just, you know, finding deals and finding opportunities. And then, you know, it's really important as well that we're never going to know everything about property, because there's just too much to it. So understanding that you need to have enough to get going, and you need enough to be professional about it, but also things change all the time as well. So it's important to keep your finger on the pulse of what's changing, and there's a lot changing at the moment. So keeping up to date with what is going on is also really important. The second one is investing in your network. So one of the things I realized very early on with the magazine was that with YPN, I started to connect with people on social media, and they would appear in the magazine, and I'd connect with them and follow them. And then once I did that quite a few times, I realized that they were all already connected, and there was this network kind of in the background of people who all knew each other. They were meeting up in person and you know, presenting at different networking meetings. There'd be the socials events as well, and the, you know, Christmas ball or whatever. But really, so much of the progress I've made has come from my network. And of course, the saying goes, your network is your net worth. So I would just advise people to build your network before you need it. It's something that is very possible for everybody watching. You can, you know, and I know some people aren't comfortable to go out to these networking meetings at the beginning, but don't let that put you off. You know, you can certainly network with people online, and also you can go to the networking meetings. There'll be other people like you there who you know, who are perhaps just kind of sitting in the background watching what's going on. But that's really where you get to know people, and it's so important. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it, that, you know, these people are out there, but you probably don't know it. The networking meetings are out there, but you probably don't know it. You know, you don't, that old adage, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so hopefully we are here, your property network, to help connect the dots in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And the third one there is investing in yourself. So this doesn't just mean money, it means time, it means you know, just like believing in yourself that you can do it, which I know sounds a bit woo-woo, but the more you take action, the more momentum you get, then the more results you're going to get at the end of the day. So just think about it as there's like planting seeds. You know, at the beginning it feels like really slow and painful, and it's a bit overwhelming. There's so much going on. You've got all these different hats, and you're trying to do the marketing, you're trying to speak to investors, you're trying to learn about tenants, but don't look at the kind of day to day. Just look at like the long term. This, treat it as a lifelong hobby if you want it to be, but hopefully it's something more. This is either a career if you want it to be, or it's lifelong investment. So the more you can invest in yourself and developing your skill sets. So I think about skill sets like negotiation, for example. If you're investing in your negotiation skill set, that obviously can help in any area of life, but in the property world it really can make the difference between getting a deal or not. So the more skill sets you've got, again, the better, the more options you've got. Okay, get a bookkeeper from day one. So I wish somebody had told me about getting your tax advisors and your bookkeepers and your accountants sorted, and it's something that certainly was not in my skill set, but life is a lot easier if you can, as soon as you get your first property, just understand. And there's so much available now. You can look at podcasts, and there are people that can help you with this, but understanding kind of things about tax, especially if it's not for you, that can just really help in the long term. And then systemizing and outsourcing as much as possible. Now, what does outsourcing mean? It just means that you can find other people to do things that either you don't want to do or that you're not good at. If you can pay somebody else, now that might be a cleaner that you pay £15 an hour for 2 hours, you've just bought back 2 hours of your life that you can then go and do those viewings, or you can be calling agents, or you can be sending out letters, for example, and getting the systems. Now there's so many systems. Don't worry too much about like all the different ones. Just get started and trying to just get as organized as possible, because there are a lot of moving parts in property, and the less you have to do and the more like a piece of software can do that you pay £20 a month for or whatever, the better, really, because you want to be focusing on things that are going to be making the most difference to you, and they are going to be the things that are going to generate income. So your income generating tasks. So focus on those as much as possible, and try and get other people or other systems to sort out the rest.
The absolute, it's not the first thing I outsourced, but the thing I'm most glad that I outsourced was, in the early days, I used to self-manage my properties. So I would do the viewings, and I would sort out the gas safety certificates, and if there was a maintenance issue, I would find someone. I'm not that's not me, but I would find someone to go and fix it. And I was delighted to outsource the ongoing management of the properties. I realized it wasn't what I was good at. It definitely wasn't what I enjoyed. And I think that came to a head when I was called to a property because there was a suspected gas leak on New Year's Day one year. And I thought, this is definitely not how I want to spend my 1st of January, probably with a bit of a hangover at the time as well. So that for me was a good one. Now, other people are supremely brilliant at managing properties, and it's what they like and it's what they're good at, and that's great. But I knew it wasn't for me. I was better placed sort of finding deals or bringing people together within a deal, and that was where my skills lay, and definitely the bit I was interested in as well. It sounds like the same for you to a degree, Michelle.
I mean, you've only got so much time in the day, we all have, so you need to just decide how you want to spend your time, and what's the best use of your time as well. So if you really want to scale the business at some point, and you want to grow, and you want to kind of have more income, then you're going to have to work with other people in some capacity, whether that's agents to manage your properties, or working with a team or whatever it is. You don't have to do that on day one, and certainly you should understand the business at the beginning, so you understand what's involved, and there is a cost to this as well. So you either pay in your time or you pay in money, right? But if you pay in money, then you can buy back your time. So, and obviously saying there, you know, about outsourcing to an agent, so you'll pay for your management fee to have that outsourced, but that buys back your time then, and you can do either, you know, different, the work that you enjoy or the work that you're good at.
It was also for me as well. I don't know if you've been in this situation. It put a barrier between myself and the tenant, and I didn't want to be customer facing in that way. So I didn't want to get the phone call if there was a problem with the property, or if they were struggling with the rent that month or whatever. I didn't really want to have to deal with that. That wasn't my thing, and so it just put a barrier of communication between us, which in the main I think has been a really, really good thing. So
yeah,
I'm really pleased.
I think most people do prefer that as well. But sometimes you might have to have an extra property to pay for all of these extra things, and that's fine. It's just part of the plan. So just bear that in mind, that you don't have to be doing all of the day-to-day management. You just have to have enough income to be able to outsource it.
And if we've got time before we talk about before we move on, I think it's important to talk about one mistake that some people make when they come into property. And this is, I think when they come in and they've got some money, you know, they've worked really hard or saved up, or, you know, refinanced their residential property or inherited some money or whatever, and they've got a pot of money, and that pot of money will often mentally dictate to them, oh, I've got this much money, so I can achieve this much with it. And I think that's a real shame that you know, there's a sort of closed mind there. They don't know, they've never seen this, they've never seen what you've achieved starting from you know, a standing start with no funds. And so I would urge, you know, if that is you, you know, you definitely need to be careful with your money. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there in the property industry who will be very all too keen to separate you from that. But there's some great people as well. But I would just urge, please don't sort of limit your expectations of what you can achieve by the amount of money that you start with. That's in my experience, I've probably interviewed 2,000 investors at least over the last 15 years. Every single one of them, ordinary people who've achieved extraordinary things in property, whether it's deals like you've talked about today, Michelle, or you know, bigger developments that they've moved on to, and I know you've moved on to subsequently to from these deals. But we shouldn't limit ourselves. You know, I think everybody I speak to, the degree of success all comes down to how hungry they are, how much they want to do this, their compelling reason why. And so that would be my top tip. We've done other videos on top tips, which people will be able to watch, but I would say don't limit yourself.
Yeah, sometimes not having any money is the best position to be in, because you know, you have to do everything from scratch, and you can, and like you say, you don't have that limit of one pot of money that has to tick all of these boxes, that has to make this amount of money, and then you spend the whole year trying to find a deal that matches your pot of money. Actually, when you don't have any, you have to be creative, and then, you know, you can create deals where there wasn't any before, and you can just come up with lots of different scenarios. So
well, and
yeah.
also you can't afford to get it wrong, can you, when you're starting that?
Exactly.
So your deals have to be good. So I think that's I would completely agree with that. So
yeah,
should we talk a little bit about your property network and how we can help people? So shall I go first, or shall you?
Yes, no, go on, you go first.
Okay, so we believe that property education and the ability to get into property and make money and find your financial freedom from property is not the enclave of the super rich and the very privileged. And we think that starts with low cost and free property education. So for 15 years, we've been running Your Property Network magazine, which, as well as a hard copy magazine that gets posted to you each month, is available in app form as well. So you can opt for the hard copy, which comes to you, or you can go for a digital only subscription. Every single magazine is dozens and dozens and dozens of pages of real life case studies, of interviews with people like Michelle, who are talking through in a lot more depth than we have time to today, their deals, how they found them, what they did to them, how they added value, how they financed them, all the power teams that they had to bring in, And then we'll normally talk to, as well as the investor, we'll bring in, if they have a project manager, we'll interview their project manager, we'll interview their broker, their solicitor. So you get a real picture of a genuine in-depth picture of how that deal was brought together. So we've got dozens of those every month. And in addition to that, we have our power team that writes in the magazine as well. So my own property tax accountants, our planning consultants, our solicitors, they all write in the pages of the magazine. So these are people that we're all using and really are some of the leading experts in property in the UK, whether it's property finance or legislation, whatever it might be. It's all in the pages of the magazine. And we think that you should be able to learn all of this stuff for not a lot of money. So for a digital only subscription to the magazine, where it gets updated every month in an app on your phone or your tablet, it's £6.95 per month. If you'd like the hard copy magazine posted to you as well, it's £8.95 per month. So we think it's less than the cost of 2 cups of coffee to massively bolster your property education. And we're not just a magazine. So alongside that, you get to download the audio interviews. So we record all of our interviews with property investors, property developers. So you can play those either through the app or follow a QR code in the magazine. So you can listen to those while you're on the move. We do videos as well. We do special webinars, subscriber-only webinars, covering all of this content and much more. So we think it's a bit of a no-brainer. And to make it a real no-brainer, you can get started. I was going to say completely free, because we used to be able to say that you could set this up as a free trial subscription, but the banking world has changed slightly, and now to authenticate your card, it takes a 30p transaction for your first month subscription. If you don't like us, you are free to cancel at any time. So as I say, we print and post around 10,000 of these magazines to active property people every month. The app comes with all of our additional guides as well. So if you're looking at HMOs, or if you're interested in serviced accommodation, so renting through Airbnb, we've got a number of guides that are on the app there as well, which you can access straight away. That's us in a nutshell in terms of the magazine. We also have Your Property Podcast. We have our YouTube channel. What else do we do, Michelle? We have our total suite of products as well. But I always think the easiest route into who we are and what we do is to check out a copy of the magazine. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And, just as I said at the very beginning, Your Property Network, the key is there, the network. It's about the community. It's not just about the team and finding a mortgage broker. It's actually about being part of a community, part of a network where your success is our success as well. So we want you to do really well in property. We want to showcase your deals. We want to support you in your journey, whether you are at the very, very beginning and getting started, or whether you're looking to scale or switch or just find new ideas or whatever it is. So it is really about us all working together to be part of a community, supporting each other, and yeah, just moving forward. So it's not something that's locked in stone from years ago that we're coming back and revisiting every time. Each month is the new topics, whatever's happening in the mortgage world or in the property world, wherever it is. We're talking about it and making sure that everyone's being kept up to date of all the changes. So
I think I was going to say it's really important to note as well that we launched Your Property Network back in 2008 in the midst of a global financial crash, with mortgages being pulled left, right, and centre. We are all about creative property investment and development, and it shouldn't really matter what's going on in the market. There is a way to profit, and we profile that in the pages of YPN every single month. So I'm going to give a link now. We're not going to give it the hard sell, but if you think we might be of interest to you, then please go to yourpropertynetwork.co.uk/Michelle. This webinar's all about Michelle. So go to yourpropertynetwork.co.uk/Michelle, and you can check out the offer there. You can learn a bit more about us. and hopefully get your first copy of YPN. I was going to say completely free of charge for 30 pence. I need to keep saying that now. And if you love us, stick with us. Many thousands of property investors do.
Right, and do connect with us as well. Join our groups, our Facebook group, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Insta. And we look forward to seeing what you're up to, and hopefully one day showcasing your deals.
Thank you, and thanks for your time today, Michelle, sharing your story. I know it's a very personal story, and from full-time teacher to full-time property investor. So we look for, as you say, we look forward to catching up with perhaps some of the people who've watched this today and hearing about their deals in the future.
Great, thanks. See you next time, guys.